Normally when we have a problem, our solution is just to drive away to our local drugstore. Technology has made it possible for us today to find a quick fix in a single pill. Even more so, it has become the quick fix for our children today. My goal today is to help you understand just how often children are overly medicated with antipsychotic drugs and misdiagnosed with mental mood disorders. Last year, I watched a documentary titled Medicating Kids. It moved me so much so that I decided to do some more research about the issue. The documentary highlighted just how often children were overly medicated with antipsychotic drugs and misdiagnosed. I'm sure that most of you are like me. I plan to someday have kids. And after watching this documentary, it made me realize that this could truly happen to anyone. Today I will discuss the effects on a child that is overly medicated and misdiagnosed, and also discuss what causes this to happen and what can be done to prevent it. I'd first like to talk about the complications involved when misdiagnosing a child or overly medicating them. You'd be surprised to know that the science daily says that misdiagnosing happens quite often. Up to 97% of people that were diagnosed as having depression actually had bipolar. And since they were treated with an antidepressant first, rather than the benefits of a mood stabilizer, it made the condition worse. Though the science daily states that medication can prevent a child's depression, suicide, or accidental death, it has to be the right dosage for the right condition. In the documentary Medicating Kids, I was surprised and shocked to know that the medication given to the child wasn't even meant for them. What this means is that the dosage given to them was meant for an adult, not for a child. And in the documentary, it also showed about how the FDA found that the medication given to the child didn't even have the proper reactions as it would in an adult, so it was pointless in giving the child that dosage. Another way that a child can be misdiagnosed or overly medicated is when there is actually no mood disorder to begin with. I spoke with an adult psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Hansen, and he said that in most cases, a child can probably overcome what seems to be a behavioral problem or behavioral issues. But giving the wrong dosage or the wrong medication to a child can lead to severe complications, with the most severe being suicide. Now that I've given you some insight on the complications leading to a child's misdiagnosis or overly medicated, I'm sure that some of you are wondering who exactly is to blame. The answer is plain and simple. It's the parents. The parents are ultimately to blame for the immense lack of knowledge. They put trust into professionals that aren't specialized in diagnosing or aren't even accredited to be diagnosing and treating a child. You'd be surprised to know that parents are greatly influenced by teachers and by pediatricians, neither of which are specialized in diagnosing or treating a child for such things. According to the American School Health Alliance, parents put trust into the teachers because the teachers interact more often with the child than the parents do. So when a teacher says, like, oh, I think your child has ADHD, the parents see the teacher as a credible source because of it's the teacher. You know, they don't know what symptoms to look for, and they trust the teacher. In an article by PsychWatch, it stated that the parents should first ask themselves if it's really just a catch-all for troubled or aggressive children. In a situation like that, the parents should actually be doing some research themselves. But even with some research done, the parents still turn to pediatricians to be diagnosing or treating the child. And of course, pediatricians aren't specialized in mood disorders or giving out prescription drugs. The problem with this is a question you can probably answer yourself. When you guys go to a doctor's visit, how long do they see you for? Like 10, maybe even 15 minutes at the most? Certainly that is not long enough to be diagnosing you with a mental mood disorder or prescribing you antipsychotic drugs. Not to mention, they're not even specialized in doing so. In the documentary, it shows that even psychiatrists are at fault for overly medicating children. Since they're so quick to jump the gun and just prescribe rather than do treatment. In an article by the Huffington Post, it stated that overwhelming a child with mood stabilizers and prescription drugs, it makes it hard for them to overcome behavioral problems and become a normal adult. So I've just to direct you several ways a child is at risk of being overly medicated and misdiagnosed. There are still several ways that could be done to prevent this. The Huffington Post states that by doing so, we would be eliminating social problems and would be eliminating health risks that a child is put into that could lead to complications later on in their adulthood. The obvious solution seems to be to educate teachers, parents, and doctors. By educating the teachers and the parents, they would know what symptoms to look for. And then by educating the pediatricians, they would be more able to properly diagnose and treat the child. Though this seems to be the obvious solution, there are still some flaws. And the big question is, who would be funding these educating programs? Would it be the taxpayers' money? Would it be volunteers? And who would be doing the volunteering? To start, what seems to be the obvious solution in my eyes is to put limits. To start off, teachers, of course, wouldn't be diagnosing. They're teachers. They're not psychiatrists or doctors. And then this leads to the pediatricians. Since pediatricians aren't even specialized in diagnosing, they should be made to refer the child and the parent over to a psychiatrist. This will cut down on the number of children that are overly diagnosed and overly medicated. Though there still is the issue with psychiatrists. The psychiatrists are still at fault for overly medicating a child. So what should be done to prevent this is psychiatrists should have set boundaries. They should be first made to offer non-drug alternatives rather than prescription drugs first. And by doing so, parents would be given the opportunity to be able to see whether medication is necessary or if it's avoidable. The solution that I just presented to you is the most probable because it wouldn't ask for an increase in taxes and it wouldn't ask for volunteers. It would simply just be a law enforced. Today, I have shared with you the effects of a child when they are overly medicated and misdiagnosed, and I have also shared with you what are the causes of it and what could be done to prevent it. I now hope that today I raise your level of awareness that this is a social problem that can happen to your very own future children.
All right, Shivam, what did you think?
She had a good structure. Her voice projected really well. It was easy to understand what she was talking about. She had good citations, but you could see her nervousness through the way she was moving her body around.
I wanted a lot, but I didn't.
All right. All right, Sarah, I thought that you had a good visualization at the beginning. Your goal is very clearly stated. You've got a setup of what the content's going to be that's easy to follow. You do a good job signposting all of that, so all the structural stuff is still very solid. On content issues, there's some good information about misdiagnosis. You've got a couple of examples, some citations about problems that exist there, a couple of hypothetical examples also. I think you rely on the documentary that you saw to give us some good illustrations, but I think you need to give us some particulars also to give us a little bit more emotional resonance on some of the issues. On the solutions, I think they need to be developed a little bit more. I'm trying to figure out how, for instance, imposing guidelines on psychiatrists that require them to go to the non-medicated solutions first. I'm always a little bit iffy about saying, okay, well, here's how a doctor should treat their patient, like there's somebody else is going to know better than the doctor. I understand that the doctors maybe should have some guidelines that they follow, but I'd be a little careful about saying, well, we got to have a hard and fast rule about how you do particular sorts of things. I thought you were on the right track on some of those issues. but they needed a little bit more development. On the presentations, I thought that you had very good vocal variety and talked to the audience well. I thought your eye contact was excellent. Maybe a little bit of the shifting is anxiety-inducing, but I didn't think it was nearly as big a problem as Shivam did, but that's just me. You know, I'm making notes. You know, he probably notices it more than me. All right? Thank you.